Is it time? I know. Okay, so good evening, everyone. We'd like to welcome you to a informational public meeting with respect to our current status on the SM-1A decommissioning and dismantlement project. So we'll move into the slides. I'm Brenda Barber. I'm the program manager for the Deactivated Nuclear Power Plant program out of the Baltimore District. And we'll move into the next slides. So this is another series of informational public meetings that we're hosting with respect to our current status. We have had to revise our approach and methodology for the project, which is why we're back hosting public meetings again very quickly. We've had some design issues with respect to the large weather enclosure that we were planning to install this year over Building 606 North. And so in order to address those challenges and make sure that we have safe working conditions, we have put that to the side so we can solve those problems, and we hope to install that next year now. And additionally, we want to share some information with you with respect to the encasement material based on some recent activities at the site. So we're going to go through the current status. First current status and update that we have. For those of you who aren't aware, in January and February of this year, we did do an entry into the vapor containment structure. So the two photos here on the, I guess, left side of the screen. The upper photo is actually a picture of the exterior of the building. So the large sphere or cylinder there is actually the vapor containment structure. Of important notice is the figure below. The vapor containment structure for SM-1A has an inner and outer containment structure. So there's an outer containment structure that has a wooden facade over it, so you can see what it looks like there at the top photo. And there's an inner containment structure which is completely independent of the outer structure. So the team went in into the inner containment structure in January and February in order to assess a risk that we had with respect to our encasement material. This was the first entry the team had done since 2011. Some of the key things that we accomplished during this entry, obviously air sampling was very important. Our safety team did industrial air sampling to make sure occupationally that our teams were safe throughout the process. Then our radiological team came in and did surveys of the area, again, to make sure occupationally that our teams were safe. We also did structural assessments of the stairs, the catwalk, and an overhead crane that is still present inside the vapor containment structure. And then most importantly, we did get samples of the encasement material. So we got 3 samples of that material. The most significant finding for our team was the encasement material is comprised of a grout called AM9 grout. And the reports from the initial decommissioning indicated that there were some concerns with how the material actually set up. So it does have ammonia in it, and the ammonia does off-gas if it didn't properly set up. So we did discover that. We discovered that through real-time air monitoring and then through all of our off-site analysis of those samples. So we do have to develop approaches to handle that ammonia, and we'll be talking about that later in the slides. And then in addition to that, outside of the vapor containment structure, we did the rest of our lead-based paint sampling, we investigated PCBs, and we did final analysis of the asbestos in the building. So we're briefly going to show you a video of the entry so this makes more sense to you. And this is also posted on our website for later viewing. program. We're here today at Fort Greely in Alaska at the SM-1A Deactivated Nuclear Power Plant. The Corps of Engineers, in conjunction with A3D, is entering the vapor containment structure for the first time since 2011. And today, the decommissioning team for this project has reopened the vapor containment structure in order to do some additional characterization activities. We have opened the SM-1VC hatch, and the team is diligently working to open the inner hatch that you see behind me. While this work is ongoing, we're monitoring the atmospheric conditions with industrial hygiene monitoring equipment, including 5 gas monitors and Draeger tubes. Once the VC hatch is open, we will use a HEPA unit to filter the air from inside the VC and discharge it to the atmosphere. The HEPA unit discharge will go to the former cold storage area, which is being heated in order to ensure that all of our instrumentation can properly monitor the discharge. So as part of our industrial hygiene monitoring, we're using a meter to monitor oxygen, carbon monoxide, VOCs, volatile organic compounds, explosive gases or lower explosive limit, and hydrogen sulfide. So in addition to the 5 gas meter, we're also using Draeger tubes to monitor ammonia in the atmosphere. We're doing this because it's a potential byproduct of the AM9 grout that was used as part of the encasement material. We're testing these gases in order to ensure that it's safe, further open the VC and ventilate it so that we can make safe entry into the VC with our personnel. Today, we have performed our first entry into the VC since 2011 here at SM-1A. The team members went in with purified air breathing respirators in order to ensure their occupational safety. They did the entry in order to perform a safety analysis before additional work could occur. Additionally, visiting us this week are our regulator, the Army Reactor Office, and the Army Reactor Council, who is observing these activities to make sure that we're compliant with our possession permit. So today's activities here at SM-1A will be to enlarge the inner VC opening. So it will look like a half moon when the enlargement is complete, and it'll allow for safe access of our employees and our equipment to go inside the vapor containment structure and do the drilling to assess the AM9 grout and additional safety hazards. Okay, so since then, since the entry into the containment structure, the team's been working on our engineering documents and plans so that we can mobilize the site. We successfully mobilized the site in May of 2024. And as I said, due to some of the challenges with the weather enclosure for Building 606 North, we've come up with the recovery plan for the summer season that we're going to be presenting to you tonight. We have accomplished all the security fencing at Building 606 North, so both sites are completely segregated now from a security perspective. So Doyen has the 606 South side, and we have the 606 North side. We've completed all of our baseline radiological surveys and all of our environmental sampling at the waste storage area. We started construction at the waste storage area, which is approximately 0.7 miles from the site. We have a separate location to store waste to maximize our site footprint. And then we've installed all of our radiological site monitoring at the site. Our radiological dosimeters have been put out at the site, and then our air monitoring stations should be placed out by tomorrow. So our one-year look ahead, for the rest of this year, we hope to complete construction of the waste storage area. So as you can see in the photos, we had to clear some trees. We've done all the grading at that site. They've actually placed the subgrade. They have the forms up, and we're hoping to be pouring concrete in the next few weeks so that we have a solid base for the weather enclosure that will be placed at that site. In addition to that, we plan to install our trailers, temporary power, and fencing at Building 606 North. We have some fencing adjustments to make for our site. We will also be performing abatement and demolition of an old Quonset hut that was used to support operations of the facility. And then we plan to start abatement activities within Building 606 North this year. As we transition into next year, we plan to do some material and equipment removal from Building 606 North. We do plan to do demolition of the non-encased Building 606 North structures. As I said at the beginning, there's a wooden facade over the vapor containment structure that we plan to remove. And then we plan to construct the weather enclosure of Building 606 North next summer. Okay. So one of the key aspects of moving forward with this recovery plan is we're going to move into decommissioning significantly sooner than we anticipated. In order to do that, we have to request permission from our regulator, the Army Reactor Office, to implement our decommissioning permit. So they have scheduled an inspection with us in September. They will be up to assess that request. We need to have 1 month of baseline sampling at the site from a radiological perspective. So all of our dosimetry has been placed around the site. We have 29 dosimeters around the site perimeter as well as at the waste storage area. A3D has their dosimeters out and we still have ours out, the Corps of Engineers does. Air samplers, a total of 8 will be installed this week. So all the power was put in today and the air samplers should be running by tomorrow. And then the radiological team has started their perimeter surveys, which are required as part of those baseline surveys as well. So we'll have a month of baseline surveys to demonstrate what baseline looks like before we actually start any decommissioning. And then we also have some sediment samples that we need to take, one to start baseline, and then we'll do that quarterly thereafter. So this is a diagram of where all of the dosimeters and the air monitoring stations go. A majority of the OSLs are located along the fence line of the actual site perimeter itself. There are 2 located in Doyen's side of the building, one in the corridor, bless you, and one in their fabrication shop along the shared wall. We have the control air sampler and control dosimeter at our office building, which is building 609. And then we do have dosimeters and an air sampling station at the waste storage area as well. So as we said in the beginning, first decommissioning effort that we will undertake as a team is to demolish the Quonset hut that you see here in the photo. We call this building J5. First step in the demolition process will be to perform abatement of the entire building. So there's some asbestos, there's lighting, there's ballast, PCB switches, mercury switches, items like that. So we'll go through and do a complete abatement of the small building. And then because there is some surface radiological contamination in that building due to prior activities, we will be applying a fixative to be conservative prior to demolition. And then the building will be mechanically demolished. We anticipate 3 to 5 days. All the waste associated with this activity will be placed in intermodal containers, and it'll be stored on site in our secured site until we are prepared to ship it to the lower 48. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to abate building 606 North. So as you can press, oh, you're shaking his head. The building has a wide variety of environmental hazards, so asbestos being the big one. There are some lead-based paints that we plan to remove, PCBs, and then our universal waste, light bulbs, mercury switches, all the switch gear will be gutted. And then we'll do some what we call soft demo in order to make sure that the building is ready for demolition. So we anticipate abatement will start in the November timeframe, and we're hopeful to be finished in the first quarter of 2025. Once that's done, we do have some options on the table for the team depending on where we're at in schedule. If it's still in the middle of the winter and we finished abatement early, we do have an option where we will remove the materials and equipment on the second floor of the plant while we have the building in place in order to have some protection from the cold. The building will be dark from an electrical perspective, but we will still have steam heat at that time as we don't want the building to deteriorate while we're preparing to demolish it. So There's the steam generator, the reduction gear, the generator, all the electrical panels, the bridge crane, and a wide variety of systems piping that we're looking at potentially taking out starting as early as the second quarter. If we move forward with this option, we'll use the overhead bridge cranes to lower the equipment piece by piece. We'll take it apart. We'll station an IMC on the first floor. We'll lower the equipment into the IMCs. It'll be packaged before it leaves the building, and then it'll be secured until we're prepared to ship it. The other big thing that we're going to accomplish moving into next summer is we're going to begin demolishing building 606 North. So we're only going to demolish the non-encased sections of the building. So everything outlined in red has encasement material in it. So it's the vapor containment structure, the spent fuel pit, the demin room, and the hot waste tanks. Those have all been encased in order to encapsulate the radioactivity that was left at the site. We don't plan to disturb any of those areas until the weather enclosure has been built and we have established proper containment and ventilation. So that's several years down the road for us. We do plan to remove and demolish the white sections that you see here. It's all just structural steel. We will have controls in place from an engineering perspective to control dust and emissions associated with demolition. And obviously, as I said, all of that will be abated and free of environmental hazards before we start demolition. This too will be placed in intermodal containers. It will be processed as a low-level radioactive waste, and it will be shipped to the lower 48 as part of the process. The other thing the team's going to accomplish as part of the demolition is, as I stated, when this facility was built, they did build a wooden facade, so the inner containment structure wasn't evident to the public or anyone on the installation. So what we need to do in order to fully assess the inner steel dome, we're going to remove that wooden facade carefully and with controls. We will gain access to the steel dome, which is part of the outer containment structure. The old drawings do indicate that there's an insulation of some type on that dome. We want to be able to safely access that insulation and get some samples before we would start any demolition. And if safe to proceed, we're actually going to cut the top of that steel dome off and cut the top of that outer containment structure off. Now, again, the inner containment will never be breached as part of this process. So all the radioactivity, all the encasement material is still in the inner containment fully intact. We don't intend to breach that at any time. The benefit of removing both the wood facade and the steel dome is it gives us more clearance and accessibility once we start to build that weather enclosure and once we start to work in this general area. So it's just really a safety process for us. So with respect to waste transportation, no big changes here. We just wanted to highlight our transportation routes, both on base and off. So we do have a defined transportation route from SM-1 to the waste storage area. So we avoid the community, the commissary, the active locations of the installation. When waste is ready to be moved from SM-1 to SM-1A, it'll be properly secured in its DOT transportation package. It will be radiologically surveyed and cleared, and it'll be moved as if we were going to transport it. So it will go and sit at the waste storage area and await transportation to the lower 48. When we leave the waste storage area, we will go out Robin Road and out the main gate of Fort Greely and onto the Richardson Highway. Understanding traffic is a big issue. Right now, we don't anticipate any more than 2 trucks a week. If at any time we're going to increase that shipping frequency, we would obviously communicate that. So, and as a reminder, we will leave Fort Greely via over-the-road trucks. We will go into Fairbanks, where we'll get on the Alaska Railroad. We'll move via rail into the Port of Whittier. From the Port of Whittier, we'll move into the Port of Seattle. And from Seattle, we will go via rail to Andrews County, Texas, where the disposal facility is located. So just want to touch on some safety issues. So we briefed this the last time. All of these documents are obviously living documents for us. So from a safety perspective, we take safety very, very seriously. It's our number one priority. We are required to have an accident prevention plan. That's been in place for over 8 months now. But as the team is preparing for additional phases of work, we've updated and prepared an asbestos control plan, a hazardous material plan. We've made our emergency response plans more robust now that we have workers on site and we have work planned. So all of these things are constantly revised and updated. And anytime there's an update, the entire crew is briefed every time we update it. So it's an ongoing process for us to make sure that our safety culture is very robust. Similar to that, we have a radiation protection plan for our radiological safety at the site. The radiation protection plan outlines how we're going to protect our workers from a radiological perspective. And this is a complement to the health physics plan that the Corps of Engineers maintains for the project site. So not only do we have a plan, A3D, our contractor, has a plan too, and we work in conjunction on the implementation of rad safety for the site. And in addition to that, as I briefed you earlier and showed you the figure, we have an environmental radiation monitoring plan. So the two photos here, the first photo, photo A, is what we affectionately refer to as dog houses. So these are our air samplers. So we will have 8 of those stationed at the project site, and there'll be one inside the Doyen corridor to make sure that we're protecting their workers as well. And then the dosimeters are in these yellow PVC piping and stationed throughout the site. And again, those are checked quarterly by the contractor, and then our dosimetry is checked annually. Ours will come down, the Corps of Engineers will take ours down in January, and then we'll rely on the contractor since their frequency of monitoring is much more robust than ours. So some additional safety features that we're putting into place now that we've mobilized to the site. So Delta Medical Transport is going to be at the site full-time with us. So we will have a full-time paramedic and an EMT as well as an ambulance, and they're going to augment support from the fire department. So day-to-day first aid, basic emergencies, they're going to be our go-to. Unless we have some type of mass casualty or event that they can't handle, they're going to be our primary support from a rescue perspective. Want to reemphasize the weather enclosure for us is strictly to allow our teams to work year-round. It's not containment in any way. So we will be building additional containment as part of the process anytime that we're working in a radiological area or an area that requires additional controls. Because we found the ammonia during our entry into the vapor containment structure, and we do know that it's going to off-gas when we start to disturb it again, we have the engineers working on a more robust ventilation system for us. So we plan to use granulated activated carbon in addition to HEPA filtration at the site. And then we will be monitoring that discharge stream to make sure that there's no impact to the community. And coupled with that, our teams will now be in what we call level B personal protective equipment. So because the ammonia is off-gassing, and we were at the cusp of our safety limits in the PAPRs that the team wore, we will be on supplied air. Now, our hope is that through our industrial monitoring and our safety controls that we can downgrade our employees back into level C personal protective equipment because it's safer for them, but we will only do that if it is safe for them to do so. So these are additional safety protocols that we have in place as we speak, and what we know today. So as we continue to plan and develop our processes, we plan to host additional meetings to keep everyone updated on our progress. So any questions or comments?
All the demolition work that you were talking about, that's independent of the inspection in September?
So our inspection is to allow us to start formal decommissioning. And then our regulator comes once a quarter to inspect us. So that's just our regulator. So my on-site team is there every day. So they inspect the contractor on a regular basis. And then throughout demolition, we'll have controls in place for monitoring dust, silica, concrete, radiological conditions. So that's an ongoing process for us day in and day out. And then they issue quarterly reports. So part of our environmental, radiological, and monitoring plan, the contractor issues us a quarterly report on everything that they've seen. And then that turns into an annual report that we publish to the Army and to the garrison.
I'm just wondering, so all that demolition that you're talking about, does that have to wait for the inspection in September?
Yes. Yeah. I can't start anything till they give me permission. Yeah. So I basically have to demonstrate to them that we have the plans and processes and procedures in place to safely start the work. So everything we've done to date has been under what we call our possession permit. So we have very limited rights under a possession permit. We can do investigative efforts. We can respond to anything that's imminent or, danger. But I can't. I can build the waste area because the waste area is on a radiologically clean area. So it's been cleared by the base. It was part of BRAC. Although we found a few little utilities, radiologically, they've cleared the site. We even took surveys out of an abundance of caution, and we found nothing. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, so I'm just wondering, there's a lot of contractors and people that are waiting to start, so they're after September now.
After September now, yeah. Unfortunately. I mean, we do have contractors on site as we speak, so just depends on what the contractor scope is and where we're at with respect to the work that we plan to do now. Any other questions? No? Okay. Okay, so we do have a very robust website. So I issue a stakeholder update once a month. I do my very, very best depending on where I'm at in the world. We have a stakeholder sign up, so you can scan the QR code, or you can email us at that website and it will put you onto our stakeholder list. You'll get an email from me once a month. We also do a ton of YouTube videos. So we have our own YouTube channel. So the video that you watched tonight, they've actually taken some footage while they were here. We'll be posting some of the recent progress with respect to what's going on in the field. And then we'll continue to do so as we progress through the project. And so we welcome you to keep in touch with us that way as well. Anything on the YouTube? Nothing? Okay. So if no one has any other questions, we thank you for coming out tonight. And I would anticipate probably February, March timeframe of next year.